Alrighty, Jake Stuart with the National Sports Media Association. Today, I'm joined by Illinois Sportscaster of the Year, Adam Amin. Adam, thank you so much for being here.
No, thanks for having me, Jake. I appreciate it.
Adam, you obviously right now you're the Chicago Bulls play-by-play, a pretty awesome job. But over the course of the last 10, 15 years, you've done a lot of work inside the sports media industry, working for Fox Sports and ESPN. I got to look past some of your old experiences, and you've even done some really cool stuff like the Nathan's hot dog eating contest and McDonald's All-Americans, all kinds of cool stuff. But is there something, first of all, that like an event for you that maybe stands out?
I mean, I'm that's part of the fortunate process of getting to go through 10 to 15 years of a career. That's weird for you to say it like that, because it's like it kind of hits you. You're like, wow, it has been 10 to 15 years of doing this now since college. So I think just in that span of time, you hope that you're fortunate enough to get to touch a lot of different spots of this industry and of this business. And I've been fortunate enough to have a lot of good opportunities at a couple of different places to be able to do a wide range of different events, to do the women's Final Four, to do the Nathan's hot dog eating contest, like a little bit more of an off the beaten path thing, something you don't necessarily think about at the top of the list, but it ends up being something really fun. Doing radio and television, being able to do playoff games in multiple sports. It's really fortunate. Not everybody gets a chance to do things like that at any point, and I'm fortunate that I've been able to do that a couple of times and have some high level events and some high profile events, and also be fortunate enough to cover some things that force you out of your comfort zone and to expand your range, I guess, a little bit as a broadcaster, and make you uncomfortable and try to get you to learn some new things. So all those experiences have been important. I always tell people that these are all building blocks to something. And whatever that something is, it usually takes place further down the line. But these are all like nice foundational, pieces, a lot of brick and mortar to try to build up what is supposed to be a hopefully long and successful career.
Absolutely. Well, I want to kind of take a step back in the past a little bit and see, what brought you in the industry way back when?
I mean, I didn't know I wanted to do this until I got to college. I'm not like a lot of my close friends and a lot of my mentors. And I'm sure a lot of people that are probably watching this, they knew they wanted to do this when they were kids. And I didn't necessarily know that I wanted to do this. I had messed around a little bit when I was younger with it. I turn on Sega Genesis and call play-by-play of games you're playing like everybody else did. But until I got to college and I knew that this was like an actual career that you could have, I didn't really know that this was something I wanted to pursue. So when I decided that, hey, maybe this is something I wanted to try, I ended up going to Valparaiso University in Indiana. I knew they had a college radio station. A friend of mine had worked there for a couple of years as a student and had, told me, if you want to try it, if you want to do something in this and you want to maybe pursue this, come to Valpo and I'll be happy to put you on air. And that's eventually what ended up happening. I went to college my first day and showed up at orientation and went straight to the radio station and said, my friend told me to come here. What do I do? And I didn't really leave. So again, another kind of fortunate circumstance. The place I ended up going to had resources and opportunity, and I tried to take advantage of that. I tried to get the most out of those resources and opportunities that I possibly could.
Well, clearly you're already making your name very big at such a young age. Still one of the younger names in the industry, but this is your first award from the National Sports Media Association. What does it mean to you, Adam?
I mean, it's pretty cool. It's a peer thing, right? And that's a big deal. That felt pretty important. That people that you frankly look up to and are side by side with in this industry felt strongly enough to say, yeah, we think he's doing okay. So if that's what it means, that's kind of how I'm interpreting it more than anything else. I try not to think about it as like, like this is what we were all leading up to or anything like that. It's important that these are your peers and that these are people that you care about, whose opinions you care about, and who's who have are pursuing the same thing you are, and they're also trying to do the best job that they possibly can. And that's all any of us are really trying to do. And if it's recognized, especially by people that you look up to, that's really meaningful and it's a big deal. And I try not to think too much about it because then you get caught up in it. But it's something I'm proud of. That's that it was important enough for other people to say, yeah, we're gonna reward this guy or recognize this person. I think that's pretty cool.
Right. Well, I thought I'd switch gears a little bit, and I wanted to ask you a question about just your coverage of the Bulls specifically, and what's it like from like a commentary perspective to cover a team that goes from one end of the spectrum completely the other side this year. How much does that change for you?
What's fun? I think when we had the opportunity to jump in last year for our first full season, it was again, it's a really weird time, and I know it's not the most it's not the most positive time to try to be navigating through. No fans in the buildings. I know a lot of people weren't traveling, including us, and we just tried to make the most of it and try to make the best of the situation like everybody else is. And during that season, we were able to get kind of a groove just as a broadcast team. I'm very fortunate to work with a veteran announcer, and Stacey King, who's become a really close friend of mine. And we had a chance to really develop some chemistry, and not just us, but our production crew as well, our great producer and director and graphics team. And we all got a chance to work with a team that, was middle of the pack, was good at times, struggled at times, but we got a real chance to get used to each other. There was no crowd. There was no energy in the building that you're typically used to. So it was nice to kind of focus on the fundamental stuff and focus on just getting comfortable with each other. And we were able to do that for 70 some odd games. So this year when we came back and there were fans and there was energy in the building and we're sitting courtside again, we felt like we were just riding a bike, and it was nice to be able to just kind of get into an early groove. And then the team started playing well. And because we had seen the good stuff of the team last year and some of the struggles last year as well, I think we had a really good sense of how to approach it, how to adjust with the energy of the building. And I think our broadcast, I hope at least, it feels this way to us, and I hope it feels this way to people watching, that it's kind of how you want it to sound. It's fun when obviously that they're playing well and that they're winning games, but we've been able to kind of navigate through a lot of different angles of the broadcast to really polish it out over the last season, because we had that 1 year to kind of get into a groove. So it's really worked out nicely, and it's really been fun.
I'm sure it's challenging to have to gear up and switch from one place to the other sometimes, and keep viewers involved. One thing that comes to mind, I feel like for a lot of us when we think of the name Adam Amin, is that Auburn kick six way back when. Can you walk us through what went through that call and just that game?
I mean, obviously it's one of the great college football games of the century so far, and I'm sure you can put it on in the top 5 of a lot of different lists. It was the first time I'd really experienced an atmosphere like that in the SEC and like college football. Like, I wasn't really doing a lot of college football at that time, so I had an opportunity to do the game on national radio, and we were out in the photo deck, basically, like out in the open air in late November in Auburn, Alabama. And it was one of the greatest games, even up until, even before that kick return, that missed field goal return from Chris Davis. It was still one of the great games I'd ever been a part of. And it was so much fun. Amari Cooper and AJ McCarron teamed up for a 99-yard touchdown. There was that wild Auburn play, that kind of late RPO that ended up kind of saving the game for them. Nick Saban was begging for an extra second on the clock at the end of the game to kick that Adam Griffith field goal that ended up falling short. So the twists and turns never stopped. It was as high energy of a game in any sport that I've ever been a part of. And then all I remember, at the beginning of that kick was pointing out Chris Davis is underneath the goalpost to the right, ready to return it if it's short. And then we set up the scene. And at that point, one thing I've kind of gathered over the years of getting the opportunity to call some close games and some buzzer beaters or a play like that, or walk-off touchdowns or home runs or whatever it may be, when you get enough of those chances, you start to get a little more comfortable with what can take place. And that was one of those games that I always look back on and try to remember that, hey, you've been in big spots before, right? You don't have to panic. You've seen weird stuff. Like that's one of the weirder things that I think, Vern Lundquist has probably ever seen in his career, and Eli Gold and the late Rod Bramblett, who did a phenomenal job for Auburn radio that night. They've all seen kind of crazy moments like that. That's about as crazy of a moment as you're going to get. So I felt happy that we were able to call it accurately. Gary Barnett and myself were on the radio that night. And, that was a nice, again, building block for getting into these bigger moments and trusting yourself and saying, okay, we've done this before. We've seen something like this. You've called crazy moments like this. Don't panic, just be ready. And as long as you're ready, as long as you're in a mindset and a space mentally that, you're ready to accept whatever's about to take place and you'll react to it naturally and organically, then it'll go just fine. It was one of those building block games and building block broadcasts and building block moments that I still can't believe that we had an opportunity to call.
Well, I think it was one for all of us that, you listen to it today, you listen to it, when it happened, you just get goosebumps right away. So it's just a fantastic call. I must point out. And the last question I want to ask you, Adam, thank you again for your time today is, for the younger sportscasters out there, what advice do you have for getting in the industry, especially at a time now where things are a little bit different and shifting?
Yeah. And again, it's so much stranger to navigate, the market in terms of trying to get jobs and things like that than maybe it ever has been in an ever evolving and shifting and changing industry. So, I wish I had better insight on that, but I think one thing that, they talk about, what travels in the playoffs, right? Defense and the running game and things like that. They kind of have those cliches about the playoffs and what travels. I think what travels, quote unquote, for this industry, I think what works no matter what is being a student of the craft. I think if you're consistently learning, educating yourself, critiquing yourself, analyzing and trying to evaluate, hey, what am I good at? What am I not as good at? What can I work on? Going into broadcasts where you're trying to get better each time. That's all really this is. It's a continuous process. The goal is that by the end of your career, whenever that comes around, and hopefully that's, decades from now, decades down the line, when you finish it up, it ends kind of where you want it to end, or it ends in a good spot. I know it's easy for me to say that in a position that I'm in. I've been very lucky and I've had some great experiences and I've had some really good breaks along the way to be able to be in the positions that I'm in right now. So I understand I'm saying this from a little bit of a fortunate position, but I think it's important to realize that this is a marathon, not a sprint. What happens in the next year, 2, 5 years is not necessarily going to indicate how your career is going to go. And as long as you're a student of the craft, a student of the job, student of the industry, and you're constantly learning and educating yourself, and again, at the end of the day, trying to be good to people and trying to be a good person and trying to be good to work with and being a good partner and teammate. I think though all those things travel, those things never go out of style. Being easy to work with and being flexible and malleable and approachable and hardworking and a student, those things never go out of style. And I would always tell people just to continue to be a student of what it is that you're doing and what you're focused on. And I think a lot of that stuff, a lot of the ancillary stuff will kind of take care of itself as long as you're kind of going about the job the right way and treating the people that you're working with the right way. A lot of good things usually come from that. And again, you're trying to finish strong. It's not about being exactly where you want to be right out of the gate. It's about building towards something that's sustainable down the line for the future.
Right. You said it's a marathon, not a sprint. I love that. Thank you so much again for your time, Adam. 2021 Illinois Sportscaster of the Year. Feels good to say, I'm sure, and good to hear. But thank you again for coming on, and we appreciate it.
Thanks, Jake. Appreciate it, buddy.
Hope to see you in Winston this summer too.
You got it, man. Looking forward to it.